Okay, and we are live on YouTube.
All right, welcome to the May 17th public hearing and public meeting of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We'll begin by taking attendance. I'll turn it over to Mark Silverman to call the roll.
Chair Carroll.
Here.
Vice Chair Bland.
Here.
Commissioner Shamir Barron. Commissioner Chapin.
Here.
Commissioner Chen. Commissioner Devonshire. Commissioner Goldblum.
Here.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Here.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Here.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Here.
Commissioner Holford Smith.
All right, good morning again and welcome to our public hearing and public meeting of May 17th. Today, this meeting is being held via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube. So if you would like to testify on any of the public hearing items, please join the Zoom meeting at the estimated time that is shown on the agenda, which can be found on our website. And if you would like to just watch the proceedings, you may do so on our YouTube channel. And we're going to start today with a public meeting. We have one item that is a technical item relating to our public hearing process that we'll describe in one moment. And the commissioners will be voting on whether to calendar that for a public hearing. We will then be reviewing an application that has already had a public hearing and is back today with revisions in response to the comments that were made at the public hearing after listening to testimony. And then we'll move to our public hearing agenda. And with that, I will turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through both agendas.
Thanks, Sarah. And I will actually pass the baton back to Mark Silverman to go over the resolution.
Thank you, Corey. Commissioners, the item before you is a request to calendar a public hearing to consider adopting a resolution to allow you to take advantage of the new procedures under the open meetings law that allow remote participation of some commissioners. The open meetings law was amended in April of this year to loosen up the requirements for remote participation by members of public bodies like the LPC. As you may know, currently a commissioner may attend a public hearing or meeting remotely only if their remote location is advertised in the notice for the hearing and the public can attend at that remote location. For these reasons, there's never been a situation at the commission where a commissioner has participated remotely outside of the pandemic, obviously. The April amendments change that requirement if certain conditions are met. The most important one is that in order for any commissioner to participate via video conferencing, a quorum of 6 commissioners must be physically present at a location or locations where the public can view and where appropriate participate in the proceedings. In functional terms, that means for us likely that would be at our public hearing room. In addition, we must establish written procedures governing member and public attendance consistent with these April amendments. I will go into some of these requirements in a minute, but the procedures will require defining the circumstances under which remote participation by you is permissible. The April amendments permit remote participation where, due to, quote, extraordinary circumstances, unquote, or any other, quote, significant or unexpected factor or event, unquote, a commissioner is unable to physically attend the meeting. The amendments define extraordinary circumstances as including but not limited to such immediate things such as disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities. We will be defining what is meant by unexpected factor or event in our procedures. In addition, we must post these procedures, on our website. We must ensure, unless the commission is in executive session, that commissioners participating remotely can be heard, seen, and identified by the public while the meeting is conducted. We must ensure that minutes of the meeting identify which commissioners are participating remotely, and these minutes, of course, are public. We must ensure that the notice for such a meeting informs the public that video conferencing will be used and where the public can view or participate in such meetings. It must ensure that each meeting using video conferencing shall be recorded and such recordings posted or linked on the commission's website within 5 business days and shall remain available on the website for 5 years and shall be transcribed upon request. Where video conferencing is used to conduct public meetings, members of the public must be able to view the meeting via video. And where public comment or participation is authorized, participate in the meeting via video conference or phone or in real time. So I just want to point out there's a distinction. We can independently provide for public participation through remote means, regardless of whether any commissioner is participating remotely. But where commissioners are participating remotely, we must provide that. So it's just a little wrinkle there. And finally, and the reason we're here today is the April amendments require that you adopt a resolution after holding a public hearing authorizing the use of video conferencing consistent with the requirements of these April amendments. So today you're being asked to calendar for a future public hearing, a proposal to adopt this resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. So commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, and as Mark said, this is really about you all having the commission having the flexibility for certain members to participate remotely under certain circumstances. The public can continue, should we move into in-person hearings, develop the technology to continue some hybrid or remote participation, the public can participate remotely regardless of this amendment. This is really geared toward allowing you the flexibility. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and make the motion and then we can schedule the public hearing. So let me just, okay, I move that the Landmarks Preservation Commission calendar a public consider adopting a resolution authorizing the commission and any committee or subcommittee thereof to utilize video conferencing in conducting public hearings and meetings in accordance with the provisions of Part WW of Chapter 56 of the laws of 2022. All right, Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so with 7 commissioners present, the vote is unanimous to calendar it. Thank you. All right, we'll move to the next public meeting item.
Okay, so we'll begin today's Preservation Department agenda with public meeting item number 1, LPC 22-00721, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 1244, Lot 43. 1118 Park Place in the Crown Heights North 3 Historic District. This is a 2-car garage and the application is to alter the facade. This was last presented at the public hearing of March 15th, 2022, and no action was taken at that time. The staff will present the revised proposal today.
Morning, Commissioners. Abby Hurlbut, Preservation staff. This application is to alter a garage, which is located on the south side of Park Place between Hampton Place and Virginia Place in the Crown Heights North 3 Historic District. So as Corey mentioned, this application was last heard in March of this year. At that time, there was a consensus of support for the adaptive reuse of the garage. However, the commissioners present were concerned about the metal storefront infill. I'll go to the next slide here to show you what was seen previously. The frosted glazing and the metal coping covers. And the commissioners at the time requested that the applicants explore redesigning this infill to more closely recall the garage, including incorporating carriage house style doors, wood infill, and masonry copings. So the applicants have revised their proposal. And I'm just going to move to the next slide here, which shows the new proposal and in comparison with the old. And as you can see, the new proposal features the wood doors with clear glazed transoms and masonry copings. So I'm gonna move through this next few slides very quickly because these are just showing other garages in the historic district, which was seen previously. I can always go back if you want me to. And then here are the next few slides here to show you what the garage looks like now and at the time of designation. So here's some more close-up photos. And then, so these next few slides show that the proposal includes finishing these exposed CMU walls with stucco instead of just leaving the CMU exposed. And finally, here's a close-up of the new proposal. And then the next few slides show some details and some material samples if you're interested. I'll go back to here so you can see the elevation, and the applicants are here to answer any questions you may have.
Hey, thank you, Abby. And we do have a question. Commissioner Goldblum?
Are these doors operable?
They will be fixed in place.
But they could theoretically be open. They're real doors. They're not just fake paneling that's meant to look like doors.
That is correct.
And the transoms are wood.
Yes, this is all wood infill.
And is the brick new or is it existing?
It's new. I can go back. You can see it's in pretty rough shape.
Okay. Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, other questions? Okay, so I think we can move to our discussion. So as Abby said, when we last saw this, the commission was fine with adaptive reuse and finding a new solution for the facade of this building. But I think that the applicants represented that it was not going to be a commercial space and that they did want privacy, so that they had some frosted or filmed glass in this otherwise storefront assembly. And so I think we were sort of confused why it needed to look like a store frosted, and they needed some privacy. And so we asked them to explore something that would be more in keeping with the domestic character of the streetscape and the sort of character of the garage building and buildings in this district. And so they've come back with doors that evoke garage doors. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think it's much improved. I think it's generally appropriate. I do think that they should work with staff in terms of the details, because it looks to me like there's no header for these doors, which is probably means that they won't really work. Or I guess I'm not getting it, but they should just work with make sure the details are appropriate. But the other thing I was thinking is, if they're going to do brick, they might want to return it a little bit more down the sides than one brick thick version, since it's not there anyway. I mean, they might, whatever the width of those piers are, it would be more normal to have it not look like it's going to peel off.
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Bland?
I agree. Much improved. They really listened. And I think Commissioner Goldblum's comments should be taken to heart,
Okay,
but
great.
working with staff to do so.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I totally agree. It's a vast improvement, thank you. And the applicant should work with staff on some of the details.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree. The only issue I have is the stucco on either end, just to verify the color of the stucco.
Okay. Color and field, okay. Commissioner Jefferson? Commissioner Gustafson, excuse me.
I agree with my fellow commissioners, appropriate.
Okay, and Commissioner Chapin?
I think it's an excellent solution as long as it works for the applicant's use. And I can approve it.
Okay, great. So I think we can move to approve this contingent upon the condition that they continue to work with the staff on the details, particularly of the return of the brick and the headers, and that the staff review final samples of stucco in the field. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make that motion?
Sure. Regarding 1118 Park Place, the Crown Heights North 3 Historic District, the application is to alter the facade of a two-car garage. I note that a garage was located at this site historically, as documented by historic photos. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage, eliminate, or conceal any significant architectural features of the building or site. That the proposed design of the front facade featuring brick cladding with a soldier course above the lintel and cast stone copings will harmonize with adjacent row house and be in keeping with other utilitarian garages found throughout the historic district that the proposed painted wood doors and clear glazed transoms will maintain the scale of a garage opening in keeping with the building's historic typology and support the adaptive reuse of the building, and that the work will not detract from the significant architectural features of the building, site, or historic district.
All right, Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
aye,
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Please continue to work with the staff. And we'll move to our public hearing agenda now.
Okay, and I'm going to start with a bit of housekeeping just to do a couple of related items and read them into the record so that they are not forgotten later in the day. Those are items 16 and 17. 16 is LPC 21-10627, 251, 253 Fifth Avenue in the Madison Square North Historic District, application for a certificate of appropriateness. Item 17, LPC 22-02343, 251 Fifth Avenue, Madison Square North Historic District, application for a modification of use in bulk. These will not be presented today, reading them into the record, and they will be presented at an upcoming public hearing, upcoming agenda. And we are also short an applicant, so I believe we are going to skip to public hearing item number 2, that is LPC 22-09405. This is an application for certificate of appropriateness in the borough of Queens, block 136, lot 33, 4718 Skillman Avenue in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. This is a brick row house with colonial revival or Art Deco style details designed by Clarence Stein and Henry Wright and Frederick Ackerman and built in 1924. And the application is to replace a fence.
Hey, commissioners, the applicants are here. The staff will be presenting the presentation. I'm going to try one more time, Eileen, to promote you to panelist. Please accept my request. Okay. Tim, you now have control of the presentation. Please state your name for the record. You may begin. Tim, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me
Yes.
at all? Okay, sorry. I could hear you, so I'm not sure what was with the headphones. My apologies. Good morning, Commissioners. Timothy Shaw, Preservation Staff. The application before you this morning is to replace an existing chain link fence with a new metal picket fence at 4718 Skillman Avenue. At the left is the corner of the side yard with the existing chain link fence, and at the right is the existing metal picket fence located at the house's front yard, which they are proposing to match. 4718 Skillman Avenue is located at the southwest corner of Skillman Avenue and 48th Street within the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. At left is a view of the corner of the property showing the chain link fence running down the side yard along 48th Street. The center photo shows the context of existing fences looking west on Skillman Avenue from in front of the house. And the photo on the right shows the existing fence at the opposite end of Skillman Avenue at 47th Street. And note that the conditions at this house were present at the time of designation. The tax photo here shows the historic conditions, which were typical of Sunnyside Gardens, with the use of hedges at the perimeter of the front yard. And at right is one of the original marketing plans for Colonial Court, which was the first block constructed in Sunnyside Gardens, which shows plantings at the corner. Here are some more photos of the existing conditions. At left is a view of the house at the corner with the stucco at the parapet. Oops. There, sorry, where you can see the chain link fence running down 48th Street. At Top right, again, is the existing fence at the corner of the yard. And at bottom right shows that running further down 48th Street with a gate at the side walkway. Here are head-on views of the house. At left shows the chain link fence running along the side yard and returning along the driveway at both sides. And at right shows the existing metal picket fence at the front yard of the house. This metal picket fence is to remain. The proposal in plan shown here is to replace the existing chain link fence, which is shown in red, with a new metal picket fence to match the existing, which is to remain, shown in blue. The new metal picket fence will have a height of 36 inches to match existing, with posts and pickets to closely match the design of the existing fence. The homeowner also showing here is the existing chain link along the driveway. The homeowner plans to intends to plant greenery behind the new fence along the side yard. And just for context of precedence, just to show, this is a views of a fence, a 36-inch tall fence at 3956 47th Street. This was approved at public hearing in 2013. And this is one of only 2 front yard fences approved by the commission in Sunnyside Gardens. But you see here the greenery behind. And this is not at a corner, this is at one of the mews in the middle of a block. I'll go back to the context. The owner, Eileen Nielsen, is also here in the meeting. If there are questions I'm unable to answer, if you want to hear from her about the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I think we don't have questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony. And if you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Lisa Krasavich to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you. We didn't have anybody sign up to speak on this item, and I don't see any hands raised. So I don't think we have anybody to speak. We did receive a letter from Community Board 3 who, and they support the application to allow the replacement of the chain link fence with the height of the fence to be determined by LPC.
All right, thank you. Okay, and I think when this application originally came in, they were still trying to determine the height and ultimately landed on a height that would match the existing fence at the front yard. I'd just like to ask the owner if there's any final comments she'd like to make before we move to our discussion. Ms. Nielsen, would you like to say anything?
Thank you. I don't have anything to add to Tim's presentation other than that I think this would significantly improve the appearance of the house. You actually can't see it behind the chain link fence so easily, but it does have a very beautiful garden. And it is at a rather prominent corner location. So I also think this would contribute to enhancing the aesthetics of the neighborhood.
Thank you. All right, so commissioners, if there are no other questions, I'm going to ask that we move to close the hearing. Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion. And thank you, Tim, for such a clear presentation. So we know that historically the gardens in front of the houses in this historic district were delineated with hedges, unlike Jackson Heights, which actually had open spans of lawn and grass that sort of transitioned to the public space. These gardens were delineated and enclosed with hedges. So it's slightly different character. And of course, by the time of designation, there were many fences. And under the rules, the staff is authorized to approve 36-inch high fences at the rear, private rear yards, which face the common gardens, some of which can be seen through gaps in the street wall. And as Tim also mentioned, the commission has also approved replacing modern chain link fence with new picket fence fences at 36 inches in height, as to finding that as an improvement over the existing condition, which of course can remain. So this application is similar to that. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. As a homeowner who has a house that's surrounded by a fence that's very similar, and a big opponent of chain link, I think this is a terrific improvement. It's consistent with what appears in this district, and as long as the details are going to match, they can work with staff on that, match the existing as much as possible, then I think this is appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapin?
This is a feature in Sunnyside, which has evolved over time, and it permits, actually permits alternatives to the privet hedge, so that you can have more view of the houses. And so I think as long as the fences we are approving are simple and consistent in terms of height, that this is a reasonable solution. Certainly much more desirable than chain link, and so I could approve this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
A disagreement.
Commissioner Bland?
I agree as well. Very appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Appropriate.
And Commissioner Lutfy, sorry.
It's okay. Very appropriate.
Okay, so I think we've got a consensus to approve. So Commissioner Gustafson, would you make the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC 20-10946, 41-12 47th Street in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. The application is to replace a fence. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the existing chain link fence is a modern installation. Therefore, its removal will not eliminate any significant features of the building or site, that the location of the proposed fence will maintain the original configuration of the front yard and will not enclose any of the historic interior common garden, that the 36-inch height of the proposed fence will be in keeping with the heights of other front yard fences previously approved by the commission, that historically many of the private gardens were enclosed with privet hedges and some today are enclosed with fences. Therefore, the proposed fence is consistent with the historic evolution of these gardens, and that the proposed black finished metal material of the fence will match other metal work at the building and will be in keeping with metal work previously approved by the commission within the historic district. And we recommend that the applicant work with staff to make sure that the details of the fence are fully developed.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Sorry, John, thank you. Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfy.
Aye.
The motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed.
All right, that's approved. Thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Okay, we're going to move back to item number 1, which we had previously just skipped. Item number 1 is LPC 20-10946, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 137, Lot 39, 4112 47th Street, also in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. This is a simplified colonial revival style house designed by Clarence Stein and Henry Wright, built in 1924, and the application is to replace a fence.
Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and the staff will be taking you through the presentation.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Creer and Preservation staff. This application is to replace a fence at 41-12 47th Street in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District, very similar to the application that you just saw. So here you can see the house's location on the west side of 47th Street between 43rd and Skillman Avenues. On the left is the 1940s tax photos showing a short hedge at the front yard. And by the 1980s, the existing chain link fence, also seen on the right, had been installed. Here are some additional photos of the existing fence. And on the right, you can see that the building also has an existing railing at the basement level entrance. The design of the new fence will match this railing seen here. On the left is a fence that you just saw in the previous presentation that the commission approved in 2013. And on the right is one of the many fences that are not historic, but were installed prior to the designation of the historic district. And this is just another example of an existing fence with a similar design. And here we have a better view of the existing railing at the subject property on which the fence will be based. And here's a sketch of the design. The fence will also have a gate in the same location as the existing gate. And lastly, we just have some context of some existing fences in the district. As well as at the adjoining properties. This is the subject property here.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions on this application?
And one of the owners should be here as well if you do have any questions.
Okay, thanks. All right, why don't we move to public testimony? And I'll turn it over to Lisa Savage to take us through that testimony.
Okay, thank you. And we did not have anybody sign up to speak on this item, and I don't see any hands raised. We did receive a letter from Queens Community Board 2 who supports the application to replace the fence.
Thank you. Right. So I'd like, if the owner would like to say anything, we're happy to hear from the owner, but otherwise we can move to our discussion. I think this is fairly straightforward. Would the owner like to say anything?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so commissioners, I'm starting to unmute you all, or request to unmute so we can move to close the hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So second.
So move, okay. And
Oh, so move.
Commissioner Lutfi, will you second it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And this is very similar to the application that we just saw. This one is mid-block in a street where there are fences on the adjacent properties. And again, this will replace the chain link fence with a black metal picket fence. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Yeah, sure. I think, yes, this is extremely similar to the last one. I think the same issues apply, which is that it is typical of the development of the boundaries in this district. And as long as it's simple and 36 inches, I think that's a reasonable solution. Just that they work with the staff on the details since they were not really fleshed out in the proposal. But I can approve this as presented with that condition.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
No disagreement. However, I would say that if we are thinking that this particular design is appropriate to Sunnyside Gardens, then we ought to make it a staff level approval to do it with exactly these details and exactly these specifications so that folks can be incentivized to just keep it uniform. Uniformity is kind of the thing over there. So
that is true. It's a good point.
I
Thank
agree.
you. Okay. Does everybody else agree with this?
Yes.
Application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
why don't we go ahead and Commissioner Chapin, would you make the motion?
Sure, thank you, Sarah. In the matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Queens, LPC 20-10946, 41-12, 47th Street, Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. A simplified colonial revival style house designed by Clarence Stein and Henry Wright and built in 1924. Application is to replace a fence. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the existing chain link fence is a modern installation. Therefore, its removal will not eliminate any significant features of the building or site, that the location of the proposed fence will maintain the original configuration of the front yard, and will not enclose any of the historic interior common garden. That the 36-inch height of the proposed fence will be in keeping with the heights of other front yard fences previously approved by the commission. That historically many of the private gardens were enclosed with privet hedges and some today are enclosed with fences. Therefore, the proposed fence is consistent with the historic evolution of these gardens, and that the proposed black finished metal material of the fence will match other metalwork of the building and will be in keeping with metalwork previously approved by the commission within the historic district. However, I find that the details of the fence are not fully developed, and therefore I recommend that the details of the fence be studied to be in keeping with other ironwork within the historic district in consultation with staff.
Thank you. And Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that motion?
Second.
Mark, sorry, John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
The motion carries 7 in favor and none opposed.
That's approved. Also, please continue to work with the staff on the details. And we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 22-06146, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Queens, Block 8093, Lot 30, 9 Hillcrest Avenue in the Douglaston Historic District. This is a vernacular house built circa 1910. The application is to alter windows and construct a dormer addition.
Hey, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. They now have control of the presentation. You just need to click on your screen. And then you can advance your slides using the arrow keys or your mouse. Please unmute yourself and state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Great. Good morning, commissioners. As was mentioned, my name is Elle Gerdeman. I'm calling in from Kochi Architects. And so we're presenting today 9 Hillcrest Avenue in Douglaston, Queens. We have a few historic photos. This is actually prior to the historic designation. I'm putting it in here as reference. This is at the time of designation. You can see it in contrast or in similarity with the existing. I will note that we are making a few improvements on this particular street facade. However, they are all being passed at staff level, so we won't talk about that. Instead, I will continue to move forward and kind of show you views from the street of this house and the proposed amendments to the house. So looking at the map of where this home is located within Douglaston, and a little bit closer on, so we have Hillcrest Avenue here. You can see that's the main frontage. There are also kind of very slight views, which we'll see from Hillside Avenue up here to the north, to 35th to the west, and Cherry Street from the south. Again, these are going to be all very much partial views. The primary views that we've already seen are from Hillcrest Avenue, and those are only staff level. Okay, so here's the block plan of the site. The front amendments that are all approved staff level, and we're getting into the north elevation, which again, it's difficult to see this, but these are some of the more major amendments. We're asking to provide a kind of dormer addition to this area under my cursor, as well as a new window over here by the existing bay window. From the west elevation, we can see what that dormer looks like here. So we have an addition of these windows across the facade and a small window here, other windows which are not able to be seen from any street over here that are just slight enlargements. And from the south elevation, we are proposing a slight modification to the existing oriel window. The current condition shows a series of small, actually kind of strangely placed windows within the dormer. We don't believe that this is the historic arrangement. However, we don't have documentation about that. Instead, we would like to just keep the dormer, the oriel window as is, and just extend the windows down to their kind of natural bottom. So from the street, this is the only real spot that you would be able to see that, that last adjustment that I mentioned. So here's that oriel window from the street as it is. Here's the slight adjustment just to enlarge those windows. This is a view from the site property itself, so you would not see this from the street, but I'm just showing you so you have a better understanding of what that window modification looks like. It's actually more in keeping with the bay windows on the other side of the house, which you'll see. This again is an image from within the property. This is absolutely not what you see from the street, but again, just trying to show what it looks like. So this room here is an almost unusable room because of the head height incurred from the way that the roof is so heavily sloped right here at this corner. It means that the layout and the kind of performance of the room are very much at odds with the way that the form of the architecture is. Also, what we're seeing here is an existing oriel that is strangely low. So when you're in the room, it's actually, your eye height is at where my cursor is, at that kind of the edge, the lip of the top of that window. And so we're just kind of trying to make it feel a little bit more normative in that room, actually. And so the windows that are chosen, I'll show a spec of them, but we were trying to find a window type that is has enough wood and substance to it that it feels in keeping with the other houses in the area. So these are some images of wraparound windows just down the street and nearby this home. So we can see the evidence of wraparound areas with kind of multiple mullions in here, and it seems relatively native to the region. And now I'll show you the views. So these are the only times that you can see anything of that particular moment. So we are on Hillside Avenue here. We can kind of see the very top of the roof. I've highlighted on the west elevation here what kind of approximately you see of that on the proposed elevation. And then if we kind of keep walking up Hillside Avenue, we see just a little bit of that too. So that's highlighted here in red and under my cursor. So approximately maybe a little tiny bit of that here as well. Here also on all of these slides is a kind of view scenario where you are standing from Hillside Avenue. Another just kind of few steps up the street, we can see a little bit of where that new window will go next to the existing bay window. And down from Cherry Street, we can see again the just sort of tops of the gables, and it doesn't actually appear that we'll be able to see any of the new modifications here. So that's from this street here on the block plan. And you can almost barely see that the adjustments to the bay window from Cherry Street here through the trees when they don't have leaves. Okay, so just to give a little bit of background of the modifications from the floor plan, we can see this room here. We're not actually adding any square footage in any of this proposal. It's really just to create a little bit more vertical surface for head height. So the windows that are wrapping around that main feature that we're talking about is right here. Then we're adding, of course, a kind of small window next to this bay window here on the floor plan. And the windows we've chosen are high quality windows. They're Marvin Ultimate. You can see that they have a sort of historic feel to them in keeping with the neighborhood. And we have a window schedule for reference should you have questions about that. We have the sill and jamb details here. But that is it for this presentation. We also have the owners here have joined. So if you have specific questions for them, that's also fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? We do. Commissioner Bland, please go ahead.
I was a little unclear on the muttons or lack thereof in the windows. You showed, I thought you described muttons, but then the catalog cut shows no muttons.
Right. And so a prior version of this, we had shown muntins in here, but then as we were looking and discussing with staff on whether or not there should be muntins, it seemed like actually not having muntins was more in keeping with the neighborhood and with the house. I think that can still be up to debate.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Yes, so on the northwest proposed side, again, those windows, what's the height of those windows?
The height we have actually on that elevation, let me bring that up here. So they're 5'2" tall.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead. Commissioner Jefferson. Just hit the accept button.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
On the west facade, you removed a window, a vertical window, and replaced it with a horizontal window. Am I correct?
Are you talking about this window under my cursor?
Yes, there used to be a vertical window there before now. If you
Yes,
look at
that is correct. We've adjusted that based on a kind of interior kitchen modification. But this is not viewable from any street.
okay, and you also removed the bay window, I think, correct, right? The bay window is gone too.
That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Chapin, please go ahead.
Yeah, on the north elevation, you have added some windows next to the sort of bay there. And they seem sort of crowded. Is that, can you just talk about the need for that or the situation
Absolutely.
there?
Yeah, so what I didn't describe yet was this home is situated on a hill, and the northwest view is actually a really great view of the city. You can see the downtown of Manhattan. And unfortunately, the way that the building is designed is there are no views of that view because there are no windows that are near corners. And so the owners were hoping to be able to allow for that view to be a part of their home. And so we did add these windows in that location such that the view could be captured. But we are doing it in a way that we hope extends the look of the bay window and isn't fighting with it. And so we're trying to use a kind of proportional rhythm that will feel nice with the way that the bay window is. So it feels continuous rather than two very different parts.
Thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, and just to confirm the visibility, the views of the west elevation where you do see it from the street, you really see the tops of the gables and not the windows themselves. And then the view of that opening that we were just discussing next to the bay window is a long view. Is that one visible at all?
It is here. Let me show you. I'll just run through these views very quickly so you can see them again. So we're not seeing very much here from the street. We don't see that window that was just in question at all from this view, actually. From this view, we can see just a touch of the new dormer, but not, it's very hard to see that. And if I keep scrolling, we can see just a little bit of, we can't even see the full view of the existing bay window, but we may be able to see the kind of new window that's next to the bay window there.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, why don't we move to public testimony? If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Lisa Savage to take us through the testimony.
Okay, great. Thank you. We had 2 people sign up to speak, and I'm going to start with John Graham, bring you into the meeting. John, it looks like you joined us. Please be sure to state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. Founded in New York City in 1966, the Victorian Society in America is dedicated to fostering the appreciation and preservation of our 19th and early 20th century heritage. The New York chapter promotes preservation of our historic districts, individual landmarks, interiors, and civic art. 9 Hillcrest is advertised as a vernacular house, a phrase sometimes used to describe a building constructed by a builder using traditional forms and materials rather than being designed, but which can also, to quote Merriam-Webster, be characteristic of a period, place, or group. We believe that 9 Hillcrest retains many of the best features of vernacular cottages built in the first decades of the 20th century, including the scale, roof lines, and modest windows typical of this type of house. It's also evidence of the way Douglas Manor was developed, with grand houses along the water and much more modest dwellings back in the hills. The applicant is proposing many small changes to this cottage. The BSA-NY supports the proposed work on the east elevation, which includes replacing the modern front door, the deteriorated columns on the porch, and the entry steps. We question the fence, apparently a staff level approval, which doesn't seem to conform to the Douglas Manor covenants regarding open space. We also support the changes to the bay window on the south elevation, although we question replacing the existing multi-light window on the rear wing with a single pane window. But we strongly oppose the changes proposed for the northwest, which include raising the roof and installing 7 floor-to-ceiling panes, which wrap the corner, obliterating the original scale of these facades, along with additional outsized windows next to the existing bay on the north. These changes appear to be textbook examples of proposals designed from the inside out, without ample regard for the historic structure. Commissioners, any modifications approved for this building must be designed in detail to relate to the massing and character of this vernacular style cottage. The applicant should work with staff to integrate the proposed work with the original building and return with a much altered proposal. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. And next, I'm going to call Helen Thurston. And Helen, I see that you're in the meeting.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead.
I'm actually Helen Freeman from Historic Districts Council. Sorry, there was a mistake there. HDC finds these proposed alterations inappropriate and in need of further development. There are ways to add onto and alter the facades and massing on a 1910 vernacular house. Marianne Casado and Ben Penetrat's book, Get Your House Right, might be a useful resource for this applicant in their search for a balanced solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see anybody else with their virtual hand raised. We did also receive a letter from Queens Community Board 11 recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Gerdman, or would you like to respond to some of the comments that we've heard? Or would the owners like to respond?
I'm happy to respond, and the owners, if you want to chime in, that's also great. I definitely hear the stated cases and understand them fully. I do feel that we did research the surrounding areas to find a kind of historically appropriate suggestion for the home. There are many evidenced examples of wraparound windows, and this is a location where it is very difficult to see from the street. If we were proposing this in the front of the house, I think that would be completely inappropriate. However, we tried to keep this in a location which is sort of private in all aspects.
And maybe as the owners will chime in as well. Thank you so much for listening to our case. I just wanted to say that my husband and I moved into Douglaston because we love the character of the neighborhood. We have a lot of family in the area. We're really looking forward to raising our kids here. I think a big draw for us in this house is the views and the light. And that's one of the primary reasons why we wanted to make these modifications. I think that one of the things that maybe wasn't mentioned as much is that we're actually making a lot of improvements to the front of the house too. We're actually reinstalling a historic window in the front. We're making improvements to the columns. We're actually adding 2 more columns so that it can look a lot more like the historic images. I just wanted to say that we genuinely are invested in this neighborhood and this house, and we really are trying to design in keeping with the spirit of the neighborhood, as well as trying to create a home for our family. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, any final questions? All right, why don't we move to our discussion? Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
I so second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Bland, would you like to start this one?
A hunch. I was prepared to say that what we're looking at here, this view, is not appropriate. But listening to the articulate description of why the house isn't working, and the fact that this is quite invisible from all public thoroughfares, I'm sort of beginning to feel that it can be seen as appropriate, notwithstanding good testimony from both HDC and the Victorian Society, which I listened to carefully. But I'm going first here. I'm skating out on the ice. So let's let a few others. But I think I could approve it as is, or maybe working with staff on a few little details.
Okay, Commissioner Lutfi?
Sure. So thanks everyone for the presentation, and thank you to the owners for speaking. I appreciate your aspirations for your family and for the property, and think overall things look good, but there are a few recommendations that I would like to make that I think might even enhance what you're trying to do, but still help you achieve your goals. So I'm fine with the changes to the eastern facade. On the northern elevation, I think that window that was added just is just a little crowded next to that bay window to the left of it, and that if the applicant could work with staff to modify the size and possibly the configuration so that there's just a little more air around it between it and that bay window, I think it would be fine. And then on I think the next elevation, the west, I know this is not visible, but I happen to feel like that one thin horizontal window, again, in terms of the proportions, don't work as well as it could on that side. Then on south elevation, adding those, enlarging the windows on the bay window are fine. And the dormer is fine. And then I guess it is the northwest. If we could go back to that elevation. I just feel like here, and I appreciate the desire for more light here, and I just feel like there's too much window here. And I think what you don't want to do is, and I think the might have been the Victorian Society who mentioned this, you don't want to make changes that somehow make the house look that take away the character of this house. And so I think that at the windows maybe should be just a little smaller at the top so that there is a little more wood horizontally and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. That's the sense that I get when I look at this. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, let's start with the south facade. I think the south facade works and should be kept. I can accept the south facade. And I like the enlargement on what I call a bay window, but call something else. The west facade is the only facade I have an issue with. And I'm trying to figure out how to improve that. And I would accept the removal of the bay window on the west facade and larger pieces of glass there for the view. But I think the edge, the line, the outline of the roof slope is really special on this facade and should not be changed. The circular window, the vertical window with the curve on top, I could see that changing. The location of it is not the most appropriate. But if you kept the roof slope and where the bay window, you put window, then I could accept that facade.
Okay, and I think, they really are, I think, as they said, trying to increase the ceiling height here because that roof slope is so dramatic that room is small. So would you be open to keeping the slope, but then having the dormer start right after the slope?
I like the severity of the roof line. I think it's the character of this house, and I don't know how to solve that one.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson.
Okay, I agree the south is fine. I do have my concern on this view is that horizontal window. I think I agree with Commissioner Lutfi on that. And that I don't think is appropriate. I'm actually okay with the group of windows and the change in the roof line. And then on the other, I can't remember, there's a northwest facade. I think you can get your views without crowding adding that additional window to crowd up against. Is that the side? Is that the side? I'm like, no, not that. I can't remember which side it was now.
On the north side, yeah.
North side, thank you. There, right there, got it. You can get your views. There's a lot of windows facing in that direction. You can get the views you want without adding in that one additional window that crowds the windows up against the bay. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I was struggling with this a bit. The architect was helpful in explaining the constraints they're working with. But I do feel a bit like the Victorian Society that this design is designed from the inside out, not looking, rather than designing from and looking at the presentation of the house from the outside. And I realize it's mostly not visible the things that I'm concerned about, I think, are not significantly visible. But I think when we're looking at premises, we don't always just say that that's the only criterion, let's say. So the south side is fine, as others have said. I am troubled by what's happening to the roof line because it just looks very, very awkward. And I think on the north and west elevations, and I think what the issue is, from my point of view, is that additions of sort of porch-like things in the Douglaston are very typical. And I think there's got to be a way to add a sort of nice porch here and deal with this issue of the roof line in a way that just doesn't look as awkward. So I'm for like doing this, but kind of cleaning it up so it doesn't look odd. And I feel the same way about some of the windows on the west elevation, that they're oddly placed if you're looking at it from the outside. And I think you could still give these applicants what they want and need in terms of getting more window space without having the windows just sort of seem to pop in various odd places. I think, because if they weren't doing so much work to begin with, I wouldn't, if they're just adding a window or two, I wouldn't say this, but it seems to me that given a substantial amount of stuff is being done, it really needs to look as nice from the outside as it will look from the inside. And I do think that's possible to achieve here. I'm not obviously an architect, but I think some more can be done to kind of modify how the windows and this porch-like appurtenance is being installed so that it doesn't look very disjunctive to the exterior of the building. And so that's what I'd like to see, some revision of it. I do think for the most part, the addition of all these windows is fine. I just think it's a matter of working to achieve something. And let's say with the bay that's been being discussed with the crowded windows, either one could have just one window as was discussed, or perhaps even extending the bay, since, making it a bigger bay. But something that really just fits the character better. So that's where I'm at. I would like to approve it today, but I just feel it's really very, very awkward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum.
Okay. Houses like this are always the hardest for the commission to kind of get their hands around, I think, because they're kind of not telling us what they want, the houses. The style is somewhat washed out. It's not explicit. It's not a federal, colonial, Tudor. There's rules for those. This one's kind of in the middle. So I think, and when I hear what other people are saying, some things I share, some things I disagree with, but what it all kind of comes down to this, the repeated use of words like chaotic or random or interior generated, therefore. And when I think that every window in every location as a void can be made to work. But I think what you need to do is you need to tap into the essence of what this house is. If you look at the front, if you look at the elements of the house that are historic, those stone piers on the corners, the columns, the mullioned front windows, the arrangement of the gables, this is kind of the use of the term cottage style is appropriate. There's asymmetry. There's a striving for charm through the use of mullions and asymmetrical odd gables that is the essence of this house. And I think that to the extent that you stray from that, you contribute to the kind of chaotic impression that the current proposed renovations create. And I think that you could keep all your windows where you want as voids, if you really plug the house into a more of a stylized approach, right? Those big windows at the back with that flat roof, they have no style. Fred's comment about the mullions. The house has mullions. I mean, in some places, the old windows have mullions, but the new ones don't. And it's leading to a contribution of a sense that, you know, it's like, oh, I went to Home Depot, I bought a window and I threw it on. There's no cohesiveness to it. What I would suggest is, you know, apart from specific recommendations, is to look at the house in the mode of what I would suggest is a very common analog to the cottage style, the shingle style. This house is very shingle style-ish. Asymmetry, gables, different size windows. You'll see those horizontal weird windows on a shingle style house. You'll see bay windows off center with a wraparound corner window on a shingle style house. You'll see porches with skinny columns and big open glazed areas on a shingle style house. What you won't see is Marvin windows with no mullions, all the same. And one set of windows has a 4-inch post, one set has no post. That's what's giving it that generic hardware store quality. So I don't think that it's the placement of the windows per se, but it's really the creation of the enhancement of what the house is at the back is lacking. So I think it's not about specifics, but more about a general approach to making the windows, making the design relate better to the front of the house, relate better to the historic quality. I think that will involve mullions. I think that will involve further variations on how the windows are detailed, how they meet a corner, how they meet the bay. I think you might want to look at, Diana, if you go to the, I guess it's the west elevation, the side that shows that little flat roof. Yeah, I think that if you look here, I mean, what's very anomalous is that little flat roof, right? And what you'll never ever see in almost any building ever is having a point of downward pressure, which is what that roof is, right? That roof is bending. You'll almost never see that in any architectural scenario where there isn't a post there. I mean, it makes it look very random, to have a weight-bearing point that is unsupported visually. I'm sure structurally it works fine, but just visually, it's a very awkward thing. And what that would lead you to do is to, again, emphasize asymmetry, emphasize charm by looking at how to break up that window into something that was more, played up the asymmetry, played up the casualness, the charm, the cottageness of it.
Great, thank you. All right, so I think where we are is that the commission appreciates the goals here, and I think that there is support to create new windows that provide more light, headspace, and that sort of open up the house in these very sort of minimally and non-visible locations. However, we'd like you to continue to work with the staff to study the design of them as they relate to the architecture of the house and their details, and that also can, I think, proportions as well. So as you think about the historic character of the house and how that informs your designs, you'll, I think, revisit some of those proportions as well as some of the details. And so please continue to work with the staff, and we will have you back as soon as you're ready with a revised proposal, and we'll take no action today. All right, thank you. And we'll move to the next item.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 22-07650, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 225, lot 15, 40 Orange Street in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. This is an eclectic style brick row house built circa 1890, and the application is to install a sign.
Hey, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing. Patrick, you now have control of the presentation. Just click on your screen.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Kalaki. My
Patrick,
family-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you click on your screen and then you'll be able to control the slides? Perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Kalaki. My family and I live at 40 Orange Street. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about, present our proposed project to install masonry street signs at 40 Orange Street. These are the sorts of signs that indicate the street and are made of stone on the corners of buildings. Okay, so the house is located in Brooklyn Heights in the northern section at the intersection of Hicks and Orange Street. That is diagonally across the street from Plymouth Church as a reference point. It's also part of a set of 5 houses of the same style to the west of it. And then further west to that are 5 more houses that I believe are called the 5 Sisters houses that may also be a reference point for you. They're further down Orange Street toward Willow. This slide shows you 3 different viewpoints. First, looking the Hicks Street side looking west, in the middle, the Orange Street side looking south, and then finally the corner of the house where the proposed project would be looking southwest. For further context, some historic photos, the tax photo from the 40s, a little bit of a different color. I guess it was painted, but showing the corner. And then a much older picture that actually I got from LPC staff from a time when there were still stoops on the building and all the buildings next to it. Ultimately, those were removed because they needed to widen the streets for those new things called cars. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so what we're proposing to do is, again, to put in masonry street signs, and these are 3 examples that are within a block or 2 of the house. The picture on the left is on the opposite corner at Orange and Willow. It's 22 Orange Street. The picture in the middle is diagonally across the street from that, also Orange and Willow, 56 Willow Street. And then the rightmost one is at Pineapple and Willow, so just 1 block south of that. Okay. All right, this is a close-up of the street sign in place at 22 Willow Street. Same picture on the left, and then the close-up shots. It appears to be a limestone, and definitely has been around for a while. So this sign, as all others, as best as I could tell, is 22.5 inches wide and 4.75 inches. I'm sorry, 22.5 inches long and 4.75 inches wide, which I'll make a note of it on the last slide. Okay, so the proposal is just sort of 3 graphics here, 2 graphics and picture, is to place the street signs, which are not historic, in the corner of the building between the 1st and the 2nd floor windows. Okay, so we can go back to that if we want, but so this is the last slide, but the basic specs are the signs would be installed flush to the facade brick at the corner between the 1st and the 2nd floor. The Brooklyn Heights Association reviewed it and supports the project, as does Community Board 2. Brooklyn Heights Association recommended fabricating the signs out of concrete so that they appeared contemporary rather than original. The signs would be installed under an ongoing exterior restoration project now underway. And finally, the signs would be 22 and a half inches long, 4.75 inches wide, and 3.5 inches deep. And that is a bit more than 2.5 bricks plus 2 mortar lines. So it doesn't intersect with a mortar line itself. 2 bricks plus 1 mortar line wide, and then of course 1 brick deep. We would make them limestone colored cement made of a fine and coarse aggregates, cement and water, and the finish would be honed. The picture here shows you what that would look like. This picture is this sample is wider, of course, than what we're doing. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have any questions? All right, I think we don't have questions at this time. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will now turn it over to Lisa Kersavage to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you. We had one person sign up, and I'm going to bring Judy Stanton in now.
Judy Stanton for the Brooklyn Heights Association. We support this application and we appreciate the applicant's willingness to incorporate Brooklyn Heights Association's suggestion as to the material and style of the new sign. We just suggested that it not pretend to be original, that it might be obvious that it's a contemporary addition, but we think it's appropriate as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised. And we did, as noted, receive a letter from Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommending that the application be approved as presented.
Thank you. All right. So we do have some questions. Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead.
I must ask, why conceptually?
Am I still on? Yeah.
Yes.
I have enjoyed the neighborhood. I've lived in the neighborhood. I'm a newcomer, only 25 years, and it's a fun addition. That's about what it amounts to.
Okay, thank you.
And you've seen it on other buildings and were inspired by it.
Yep. Yes, that's right.
Okay. Mr. Kalaki, is there anything else you'd like to say before we move to our discussion?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, I'm sending you requests to unmute so that we can move to close the hearing. All right, Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And so this is an application, as we know, to install this corner sign that is inspired by some historic examples found in the neighborhood, and material choices were considered after consultation with the Brooklyn Heights Association. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I mean, I'm amazed how this sign changes the proportion of the elevation and makes it quite nice. I like the idea of the location of it, and it enhances the elevation in terms of what it does. So I can approve this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi.
Well, I just want to say it's like the ultimate act of embracing where you are. And it's in keeping with what's been done historically. And it's great that you have worked hand in hand with the BHA. And I appreciate Commissioner Jefferson's comments, and I can approve this.
Commissioner Bland.
Going around the table this way.
Yes, trying to get to our Brooklyn Heights resident.
Right. This is certainly not a common feature in Brooklyn Heights or anywhere else that I'm aware of, but it's not without precedent. And I think it's as the applicant has said, he's a newcomer, only 25 years, but he certainly knows the neighborhood well and the preservation issues therein, and the BHA as well, of course. So this is certainly not necessary, but it's a nice addition, and I can certainly support it as appropriate. By the way, I think he did say, but I just want to be clear that we're not cutting bricks vertically. I think that was made clear that it's 2 bricks.
That's what I understood. And Corey, can you confirm that?
That's critical, by the way, for my approval.
Yes, it's the careful removal of full bricks without cutting into others unnecessarily.
Right. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Goldblum,
No disagreement. It's appropriate.
Commissioner Chapin.
I agree.
Okay, Commissioner Gustafson.
Agreed.
Okay, great. So I think we have a consensus to approve. Commissioner Jefferson, would you read the motion?
Sure. In the matter of LPC-22-07650, 40 Orange Street, Brooklyn Heights Historic District, application is to install signage. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the specific architectural and historical character of the Brooklyn Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not damage or obscure any significant architectural or historic feature, and will require only minimal removal of plain bricks. That the proposed integral corner signs will be in keeping with the type of street signage historically found on some buildings in the historic district in terms of location and size, and the use of honed concrete tinted limestone color will be included with the texture and finish of the original limestone signs that remain in the district, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historical character of the building or the district.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lutfi, would you second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum. Commissioner Goldblum,
Sorry. Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
The motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed.
All right, that's approved. Thank you and good luck.
Thank
And before we move to the next item, I just want to note for the record a correction on a motion we made this morning. So we flipped the order of the 2 Sunnyside Gardens applications, and that caused a confusion in the docket number. So just for the record, the first motion we made was public hearing item number 2, docket number LPC 22-09405, and that was for 47-18 Skillman Avenue in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. And then the second motion we made was for public hearing item number 1, LPC docket number 20-10946, 4112 47th Street in the Sunnyside Gardens Historic District. Okay, thank you. So now we'll move to the next item. Corey?
Okay, that's public hearing item number 5, LPC 22-06838, an application for certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 183, lot 37, 104 Bond Street in the Borum Hill Historic District Extension. This is a colonial revival style residential building with a commercial ground floor built in 1914. And the application is to install signage and replace doors and storefront infill.
Okay, commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and they now have control of the presentation. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Okay, my name is Courtney Olmsted Tejada. I'm representing TBD Architecture and Design Studio.
I'm Josh Weisler, also with TBD Architecture.
We're proposing a renovation to the ground floor storefront of 104 Bond Street for Cafe Kitsune. It's located here in the Borum Hill District Extension, and it's here on the corner of Bond Street and Pacific Street. Here are some historic photos of the building. This is the 1938 tax photo. This is the 1983 tax photo. And this is another historic photo I received from Landmarks. And you can see a bit of the Bond Street facade over here. Here are some current photos of the building. This is looking at the building from the corner of Bond and Pacific. This is looking south down Bond. Right here is 104 Bond, the area we'll be focusing on, and I'll show some closer up images of that in a moment. And this is looking east down Pacific Street. This I'm just showing for context. These are some of the other renovations we're doing to other areas of the storefront at staff level. We previously were going to include illuminated blade signs in this presentation, but we decided to revise those to be non-illuminated due to some concerns from the community board with illuminated signage. So here's existing photos of 104 Bond. You can see that it is in pretty poor condition. So what we want to do is replace some of the finished materials and just clean up the storefront. We want to replace this texture tinted glazing with new clear glazing to give more visibility into the space. The tile is loose and some of it's missing, so we want to replace that with new materials. We'd also like to remove and replace these doors in the same location and then get rid of this small little round window right here. Here's an image of the proposed renovations. We're proposing to paint the existing pilasters matte black and the window frames as well. Install new clear glazing. We'd like to replace the existing tile with a similar tile below the windows. And at this inset portion of the storefront here, we'd like to install new light oak wood cladding. We liked the oak because we felt it was a material that was traditional and appropriate to the area, but we could use it in a bit more contemporary way for this area of the storefront, which had been modernized prior to designation. And we liked keeping some of this tile as a reference to the previous establishment, which had been in the neighborhood for some time to my understanding. And one last thing I'd like to mention is we previously had this signage mounted at the exterior on the wood cladding here, but we decided to change that to an interior neon style sign due to some concerns from the community board about illuminated signage. Here's an existing elevation and plan of the Bond Street facade. 104 Bond is right here. And this is the proposed plan and elevation. Again, 104 Bond is here. You can see that we're not changing the plane of the storefront. We're just replacing finished materials and repainting. And here's an enlarged elevation showing the renovations, which include the new paint on the pilasters and window frames, new glazing, new tile below the windows, and new wood cladding and doors in this area. And here's the detail for the wood cladding. We want to have a 3-inch trim around the perimeter of each surface, which you can also see here in the elevation. And lastly, these are the materials we're proposing. Matte black paint for the pilasters and window frames, and that's similar to what we're doing at other areas of the storefront. The light oak wood cladding, and then a tile that is similar in color and size to the existing tile. And that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have questions for the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson, please go ahead. Just you have to unmute, Commissioner Jefferson.
The white oak material, would it turn gray after time or black?
We're intending to choose something that hopefully won't degrade over time, and we'll keep that color that you're seeing in the image.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, I don't see any other questions right now, so we'll move to public testimony. If you're in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And I will turn it over to Lisa to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you. We had 2 people sign up in advance. I'll start with John Graham. Okay, John, I see you've joined the meeting.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society of New York. The design for a proposed modification to this building retains the polychrome brick and stone at the corner entry, as well as historic projecting wood storefront bays with large display windows and paneled bulkheads along both streets. The LPC website states the following regarding storefronts. The design can either replicate the historic storefront, or it can be contemporary as long as it is based on relevant historic features within the district and includes typical storefront elements like large display windows, bulkheads, and transoms. The proposed modifications to the northernmost storefront bays on Bond Street should follow this guideline. Replacement orange tiles, unpainted wood material, and flat, unarticulated detailing of the wood infill and doors are not based on historic storefronts. The applicant should look to the historic fenestration and the palette for this and similar buildings to find colors and articulation that pay respect to Victorian-era storefronts with careful detailing of frames, transoms, and bulkheads. The pair of side doors with portholes of uncertain age and missing some trim should be repaired. They are far more compatible with the building style and remaining historic storefronts than the generic doors being proposed. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. And next we have Helen Freeman. Okay, Helen, I see you've joined. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Helen Freeman, Historic Districts Council. HDC is generally comfortable with this proposal, and we were happy to see a business returning to the space. We are not totally convinced by the proposed natural wood color of the new front door surround. We believe it should be painted black to match the remainder of the storefront. We also question the need to replace the existing doors and their oval lights. Perhaps they could be saved and painted in a color that works with the applicant's identity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised, but I will note that we received a letter from Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommending or supporting this application.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to turn back to the applicant team and ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard.
One thing I'd just like to mention is the area of the storefront that we're focusing on was modified prior to designation, so that porthole window and those doors you're seeing, those most likely were not original to the building.
Okay, do you want to go back to a photo of the existing condition maybe?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so these, I don't know the date exactly when this had been modified, but this was, this is not original to the building. It was done before it was designated. And we had trouble getting good images of the existing condition. As you could see from like those first few historic photos I showed, it was difficult to see what was actually down here.
Yeah. Do you want to just, for the commission, do you want to just show the historic image again? Just
yeah,
so they can put this into the larger context.
Yeah, so I can even try to, I don't think I can, okay, I can zoom in. It's very difficult to see down here. There may have been projecting bays at some point, but it had been altered.
Right, commissioners, any final questions? Do you want to, since there was testimony about the materials and particularly the orange tile and the color of the wood, is there anything you'd like to, any final comments you'd like to make on those?
About the wood and the tile?
Yeah.
The wood, I guess, kind of as I stated previously, I realized that the light oak itself isn't typical, but we felt that oak is typical, but we're doing it in a bit of a more contemporary way, which we thought was appropriate because this area of the storefront is more contemporary. And the orange tile, again, that was kind of a reference to the previous tenant, but I don't think we'd be opposed to changing this area here. It's very small. There's resistance to that. And another thing is this area is being used as a bar, where the other area of the storefront is a daytime cafe. So we also wanted this to kind of have a distinctly different look, but still somewhat cohesive with the rest of the storefront.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, if there are no other questions, we'll move to close the hearing and have our discussions. And Commissioner Chapin, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Commissioner Chapin?
So moved.
Okay, and Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the hearing's closed and we'll begin our discussion on this storefront, which is separated from the storefronts that wrap the corner by the building entry. So it's sort of on its own at the other end. And it had been heavily altered prior to designation, and the applicants are proposing some modifications within that altered context. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Lutfi, would you start this conversation?
Sure. Am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes.
So I also want to echo the sentiment that it's great that this particular corner on Bond and Pacific is going to be reactivated. It's pretty prominent, and I think it's been sad that it's been vacant for a while. I also feel overall this is actually a very good project, and I'm okay with most of it. There are just two things that I would like to bring up. The first is the color of the oak. I really do feel like it doesn't harmonize as well as it could with what is a very handsome project. So I would recommend either a black or dark charcoal color for that wood. And there is something about the doors that doesn't recall historically, I think, a condition that if it wasn't here, it seemed like it was here from your photos when you blew it up. But this seems more like a retail entrance to me, and I think it would be nicer if it was a little more, if it was more, wood and a little more traditional. And I think it would still harmonize with what you're trying to accomplish here. Otherwise, I'm okay with it. You've done a good job.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very good job. I'm not quite sure I like the Swedish design of the door, Swedery as they used to call it back then. But I think if you added more details to it, it would be fine. And I do think it's going to turn gray over time. So, I don't think you're going to keep it that color. But maybe I'm wrong. I did a project where it turned gray. And the tile work, take a look at that. See maybe there'll be another color that would be subordinate. It's rather strong in relationship to the composition.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson.
I guess I differ a little bit from my fellow commissioners. I'm actually okay with the wood and the color scheme. I don't know whether it will fade or it won't, or they can protect it or save it. I don't know, but I'm okay with it as is. I went into this thinking I didn't like the orange tile concept, and then I heard about matching a color that has become sort of a symbol of this of what the business that used to be at this location, and so I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, so generally fine with the project as presented.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't really have anything I would criticize here.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Chapin?
I think the proposal is fine generally. I actually do think the tile is not necessary, and there's no necessity of referencing a previous business. It's not, there's no particularly strong historic connection I think needs to be made. So I would just use the brick or whatever it is for the rest that they're using for the rest of it for that. And other than that, I think everything's just fine.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
There we go. I find that the tile is appropriate given its local microhistory here. I think that the wood, even though it's quite non-historic, it's like a little set from a play. It doesn't really feel like it's trying to be architecture. It's just kind of like a sign or something. And I think that as such, it's fine, even though it will probably turn gray. Although I think Jean's suggestion of black is interesting, because if they're going for the Japanese wood thing, there's been quite a bit of play these days with the black charred wood. You can't spit without hitting some of that around here. It's very common, and it would definitely go better, but it might not function as they want it. So I'm okay with it as is. The only thing I would suggest, and again, I would vote for it if they didn't do it, is that they look at the base color. I think the concrete finish on the step is the most glaring thing for me. I think if that were a bluestone color or a darker color, it would look a little bit less raw. But again, I'm okay with it as is.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bland?
There's no question that oak will turn gray over time. It's just a question of how long, unless it's varnished or shellacked or something preserved almost yearly, which I think would be odd. We could leave it, let it go, and then they'd come back and want to paint it black later, which maybe we should allow, I suppose. But I think black would be more appropriate anyway. So I would recommend just doing black now. And I do think the tile is okay.
Okay, all right. So I think we have enough to approve it. We've had some mixed comments, but I think among all these comments, we have 6 to approve the changes with the door, the wood to be painted a darker color in consultation with the staff. And I think we have enough on the tile and the rest of the infill. So let me see if I can make that motion. This is a little bit different. Okay, in the matter of docket number 2206838, 104 Bond Street in the Borum Hill Historic District Extension, a colonial revival style residential building with a commercial ground floor built in 1914. The application is to install signage and replace doors and storefront infill. And I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Borum Hill Historic District Extension. We recommend approval with modifications, finding that these 2 storefront bays were altered and infilled prior to the designation of the historic district. Therefore, the proposed work will not damage or destroy any significant architectural features, that the installation of an applied natural wood cladding at the northernmost infilled the installation of an applied wood cladding at the northernmost infilled bay will not detract from the remaining historic storefronts of this long facade, which are visually separated by the main building entrance, and the dark finish would harmonize with the color palette of the building. That the design of the wood cladding and proposed paired entrance doors featuring wider framing trim boards with recessed panels will suggest typical entrance and fill configurations that feature transoms, doors, and side lights, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building or the historic district. However, I recommend that the applicant work with the staff to finalize a darker color for the wood infill, and that they also explore the color of the tiles at the base and the concrete base under the storefront infill. Right. Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All right, let's, I think, John, will you call the vote and we'll see if I got that right?
Yes. Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland,
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
The motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed.
That's approved with those modifications. Please continue to work with the staff on the finishes and colors, and we'll move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 6, LPC 22-03634, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, block 2089, lot 43, 218 Carlton Avenue in the Fort Greene Historic District. This is an Italianate style row house designed by John Doherty and built circa 1863 to 64. The application is to legalize and modify the rear facade, which was reconstructed without LPC permits.
Okay, Commissioners, the applicants have entered the hearing and they now have control of the presentation. You can advance the slides using your arrow keys or your mouse. Please state your name for the record and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Bo Lee. I'm a principal architect of Bo Lee Architects based in Brooklyn. Okay. Today, we're here to present the work involved in the reconstruction and legalization of secondary non-visible facade at 218 Carlton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. Let's see. To start, the project address is 218 Carlton Avenue, located between Willoughby Avenue and DeKalb Avenue. This page confirms that our proposed rear facade work is not visible from any of the streets. To give you an idea, To give you an idea of what the main facade of 218 looks like, it's located in photo number 3 at this location. Here's the context photo of our rear facade. Let me just, I think that's good. Yeah. This is 218 Carlton Avenue, 220 on your right, 220, 216 on the left side. This was context photo was taken in 2020 that shows a pretty rough condition of the rear facade here. We were supplied also additional photo information by the LPC staff that shows a context photo of 218 Carlton Avenue facade here that shows 220 Carlton Avenue and 216 as well. This is our initially approved DOB and LPC elevation and scope in 2020 that shows the 2-story extension on the garden and the first floor level. For the second and third floor rear facade, we proposed that existing wall surface to be refinished with a new stucco layer on top of the existing brick wall. At the time, we are showing our new parapet height to match with our adjacent 220 Carlton Avenue parapet height. Okay. However, during our construction, we observed that the existing rear facade to be in really bad shape. As you can see in our existing conditions report that we submitted to LPC, that we observed the spalling bricks, bulging face. And we also observed inconsistent facade brick types and color, and determined this rear facade was not original. The structural engineer and the construction team and the owners, we all were in agreement that this particular facade should be completely reconstructed. Since we had a chance to reconstruct this particular wall, we submitted a post-amendment approval to DOB and LPC to reconstruct this wall completely in CMU backup with a layer of finished brick to match the construction of the rear yard extension. Here's the existing section that shows the scope of work, which shows the second and third floor rear facade work highlighted there. And this is a section that shows the rear yard extension, already approved extension here, and the second and third floor area of work that in review. Here, we initially submitted our reconstruction scope to LPC and DOB in October 2021, and we received our DOB permit approval in November 2021. At this point, the owners and our office were under tremendous amount of pressure with a delay of construction coming out of a pandemic, and we were in fear of losing our contractor. But most importantly, we were extremely concerned about the structural stability of this wall with freeze-thaw cycle in the winter months, and believed that work had to be done really quickly. Also, with the knowledge that this secondary non-visible rear facade work, we decided to proceed with the work to reconstruct it with the assumption that we'll be receiving the LPC permit shortly. Let's see. Sorry. Unfortunately, after our rear wall work was completed, we were informed that our proposed work was not in compliance with the LPC guidelines. One being the height of parapet wall here. Oh, sorry. Parapet wall being higher than the adjacent building to 220 Carlton Avenue, and also the soldier course lintel that we proposed to be the window lintels. Also, regarding the height, the original height that actually is located in the of this rear wall is at 220 Carlton Avenue. But this slide actually confirms that the 218 rear facade is not seen in conjunction with the rest of the block just because of the large extensions at 214 and 220. As you can see, you see the large extension at 214 here and 222 on the right. Some additional photos that shows the condition, our project at 218 Carlton, 214 and 222. And this photo is taken from the second floor, looking at the large extension on either side. So our proposed work that we've been working since then, we would like to propose that our already installed soldier course brick lintels to be replaced with cast stone to match the already approved rear yard extension. We already have sills installed there, and we are proposing the matching brick surface for the second and third floor. We have also, this is the detail that shows that detail, alternate proposal. We have also included an alternate proposal to mitigate that parapet height that's taller than 220 to add a wooden cornice to mitigate that extra height. And that's the section. Also, we had the owners of the house today to speak about the project. His name is Dan Passett. If you could have him be on the panelists.
Hello, commissioners. Hi. Hi, my name is Dan Passett. I'm here with my wife, Cheryl Bokar. We've been working on this restoration of 218 Carlton for more than 3 years now. And we're very much looking forward to someday making this townhouse into our home for our family. Now, Bo has presented the construction timeline. I just want to add a little bit more context. From our perspective, it was absolutely critical that we close the building. We had a temporary roof, and the fears that we had about the stability of the rear wall and the upper floors. And as Bo said, we did believe we would get approval from LPC because the work was in the rear and not visible from the street. So I just wanted to explain, our rationale about why we decided to move quickly. We hope that the commission can approve this change. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do we have any questions? Don't see questions at this time, so we'll move to public testimony, and we may have questions after that. If you are in the meeting and would like to testify on this item, please raise your virtual hand so we can identify you. And as always, we'll start with anyone who signed up in advance, but either way, please raise your hand. And I'll turn it over to Lisa Krasavich to take us through the testimony.
Okay, thank you. We had one person sign up to speak, Helen Freeman. I will bring you into the meeting now.
Hi, Helen Freeman, Historic Districts Council. HDC would like to see the applicant reconstruct a corbelled brick cornice at the top of the wall, and we strongly support the replacement of the bluestone lintels above the windows on the second and third floors. We would also note that the lintels should be extended 4 inches on either side of the masonry opening and be set 1/4 inch proud of the brick facade. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised to speak. We did receive a letter from Brooklyn Community Board 2 recommending the approval of this application.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Lee, would you like to, or the owners, Mr. Passett, would you like to respond to the comments that we've heard? The suggestion by the Historic Districts Council? Yeah.
Yes. Let me see. Do I have the control? Could I go? This is the alternate proposal. If I could go move up a couple slides up.
Bo, if you click on your screen, you'll have.
Okay, great. There we go. Yes, we will. We are proposing corbelling up at the top of the rear facade. Yes, we will be replacing the installed soldier coursework with a cast lintel. Yes, we will extend 4 inches beyond the window on either side, and we can have a 1/4 inch proud of the brick finish face.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, do we have any other questions? I'm going to send you all requests to unmute yourselves. So Commissioner Bland, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gustafson, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And this is an application where the commission had approved a rear yard addition, and during construction, the owner and applicant found that the wall, the brick above, was unstable and proposed to reconstruct it, which normally reconstruction is in-kind. Reconstruction is a staff level approval, but because due to the timing, they went ahead and reconstructed it prior to getting the LPC amendment. And so what they did is they reconstructed it to a higher taller height, slightly taller height. But it is in a row with, it's adjacent to another row that is taller, and then it's next to another building. And then the rest of its row is cut off from view by the large rear extension on the adjacent building. So it is not sort of seen in the context of its full row, which is intact, an intact full row. So it's not seen in that context. And the applicant is proposing to make some modifications to return some of the features that were found historically on the rear wall. So we'll begin the discussion. Commissioner Goldblum, would you start this one?
Sure, I think this is appropriate as drawn.
All right, Commissioner Bland.
I agree. The applicant and the owner have been completely responsive to suggestions, minor as they are, to make it even better. So I think this is fine.
Commissioner Lutfi.
I agree.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I agree.
All right, Commissioner Gustafson.
I agree. I'm a little disturbed by the fact that either they informed the staff of the emergency and we didn't react, or they just decided not to inform our staff of the emergency. I think that's sort of shocking. Either of those alternatives. I'm sort of surprised that an architect would do that. But in any event, the standard we use is that we would have approved this in the first instance, and I think we would.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chapin.
I think this is very close to the original approval, understanding that the building had to be reconstructed, the rear facade, which was not anticipated. And I think I can approve this as presented.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we are in agreement that the applicants can modify the rear wall that was reconstructed ahead of LPC approval with some of these details that they're adding. And I would suggest that we recommend approval with modifications, that they just continue to work with the staff on the correct details and dimensions of these added elements. Okay. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make that motion?
Sure. Regarding 218 Carlton Avenue in the Fort Greene Historic District, the application is to legalize and modify the rear facade, which was reconstructed without LPC permits. I note that the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Fort Greene Historic District. I recommend approval of modifications, finding that the rear facade is not visible from any public thoroughfare, but the deteriorated rear facade had no significant architectural features which were lost as a result of its reconstruction. That the size of the window openings at the top floor, red brick cladding, and corbelled brickwork at the parapet were replicated in the reconstruction of the rear facade, thereby helping to maintain the building's appearance, historic appearance, and preserving the building's relationship with its neighbors. That the rear facade is separated from the intact rear facades of 224 and 226 Carlton due to the presence of a full height addition at 222. Therefore, the increase in height of the parapet will not detract from the unified row. That the placing of the soldier course brick lintels with replacing of those lintels with tinted cast stone lintels will help to minimize the appearance of space between the third floor windows and the parapet, which will help restore the facade close to its historic appearance, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building in a historic district, and that the applicant will work with staff to refine the details and dimensions of the various modifications and interventions proposed.
Thank you. And Commissioner Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, sorry, Mark, I think you're back. Will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland.
Aye.
Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum.
Aye.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutfi.
Aye.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Please continue to work with staff on all of those details.
Thank you.
Right, so we are ahead of schedule. So that was our last item for the morning. We can't actually reach the applicant for the afternoon to bring them up. So we'll break for lunch now for a half an hour, and then we will resume the afternoon session a little ahead of schedule at 12:15. or shortly thereafter, and that hopefully will help us later on in the day as well. So see you all at about 12:15, and we'll ask all members of the public to exit the meeting voluntarily so that you can rejoin at 12:15. And if anyone here was planning to speak on 337 Clinton Avenue, we'll begin the afternoon session with that item. Thank you.